actually are the kind of requirement to use JMeter correctly. All right, so we'll talk about those terminologies, what are threads, what are users, few other things like what is TPS response time and other terminologies, and we'll build our concept in today's class and probably on completely on tomorrow classes. Onward, after second class, which is going to be tomorrow, we will completely be moving into the practical parts and keeping the concepts that we are going to learn here today and tomorrow. Okay, performance life cycle. So when we talk about the performance testing, so there are different stages which combines a complete performance life cycle. The very first stage, the very first thing comes under this performance life cycle is the NFR, which is non-functional. Let me write it, NFR document, which is non-functional requirement document. Okay, so now here I have listed one topic, performance versus functional testing. Okay, so with respect to this topic, actually performance testing comes under the type non-functional. Okay, so here if I talk about the functional versus non-functional testing, when we talk about the manual testing, actually we do okay, so we were talking about functional versus non-functional. This kind of validation we call functional validation. Okay, so this is response time is a part of non-functional requirement. Okay, a page view per minute is a part of non-functional requirement. Number of users handled by the application, like you have an application and you might be wondering, like at any given point of time, how many users can log into my system. So it might be 1,000 users, it might be 10,000, it might be 100,000. Okay, it might be just 10 based on the application design, based on the infrastructure, and based on the application capacity. So those things, all these kind of details comes under the non-functional requirement. So this non-functional requirement is actually written into a document which is called NFR document that comes under the part of performance lifecycle. Now the another part which comes under the performance lifecycle is the test plan design. Okay, so test plan designing is a part of performance lifecycle. Another thing comes which is the script preparation or scripting. Okay, the script is a part of performance lifecycle. Next thing is going to be test data, and then the final runs, or you can call it executions. Okay, so we call executions as well. When we do a performance run, we call executions, okay, or a run or a test. So these are the terms we use. I can call like do a performance execution. I can call it like do a performance run or do a performance test. Okay, so these terms we use. And the final thing which comes under the NFR is the analysis and report. Okay, so these major areas completes the performance lifecycle. So whatever we are going to learn throughout this session, all that is going to be covered on all these major areas. Okay, I hope these things are clear to you. All right, so I assume like things are good things to do a performance testing. So what your role actually consists of. So you are entitled for gathering requirement. Okay, though there is an NFR document which is non-functional requirement document, so most of the things should be given to you written into the document. So consider yourself as a performance tester. Now you are going to do performance testing for any application. Now there are quite many things like okay, what is the actual requirement to actually doing performance testing for that application? Think of this application itself. Okay, so here is the application. Let me ping you the link of this to you as well. I will send you to everyone. So this is myself as a performance tester. I asked to do performance testing for this application. Now what exactly I have to do, or I have to validate? What should be my objective when doing performance testing for this application? There are quite many things I can do around this application. There could be quite many objectives. There could be quite many requirements that any single application can have. Okay, so just to clarify those things, you should be having an NFR document. If you don't have an NFR document, you should be clearly asking from to the person from where the requirement is coming. So if anyone is asking you to do a performance testing, it can be your manager, it can be one of the person from management team, from the application team, or it can be architect, or it can be a developer. Okay, or it might be a standard process to do performance testing, but you should be asking like, what is the objective or what are the requirement of doing performance testing for this application? And those things should be coming into a document. Okay, so gathering requirement, like, okay, or there can be many things: what pages to cover, how many users to put. Okay, there can be many details that this application can have, and gathering all those details is your responsibility. So that comes under the requirement gathering. What is I said, designing the test. Scripting definitely is your part. So if this is the application, the scripting actually comes like if you if you are having a testing background, even best if you are a automation tester. So you must be well aware of the script, writing Selenium script on your own, like navigating to this page and then clicking on the sign in button, finding this button and then clicking on this button, and then passing some details, user ID and password, and then clicking on this login button. So all these things we also have to simulate in terms of JMeter. So to do so, we definitely going to need a script which my JMeter can understand and then can replicate and simulate the user's behavior on this application. That part comes under the scripting. And then test data. This is also important point. Like if this application I have to test, definitely there is a requirement of test data. If I have been asked to do the login flow for this application, I do login details, right? If I have to log in into the application, I definitely need, just a second, guys. Okay. Okay, so yeah, here we need user details. So that comes under the test data, and it's not just the user details. You have to think of the requirement. If the requirement is to cover end-to-end flow from launching the application, logging into the application, and then searching for a product, and then check out and then place order, you have to think about the input data that you will be seeding into the application, or you will be passing into the application. Not seeding actually, but passing into the application. Like user detail you have to pass here, that comes under test data. On the next page, you might need the payment details, the card details. Okay, and while doing place order, you might need the delivery address. So those all inputs that goes into the application comes under the test data part. So you have to be clear on the test data requirement, and this is your responsibility to cover all these test data related things. And then test execution, we call run. So final run you have to do, and then you have to do monitoring, analysis, and reporting part. Okay, so on this part, being a performance tester, you can do some high level analysis. Like I did my test with this much users, application was performing well, there was this % of error, and overall test was pass or fail. So such kind of detail, because this analysis part need fewer analysis part. So that's a different area which comes under performance engineering. So being a performance tester, you are responsible for analysis high level, but when it comes to the similarly, what not much, because we have to ask. So in most of the cases, there is a separate test data management. Coming to the features and benefits, JMeter, and again, complete IDE that helps in designing test plan, creating scripts easily. Okay, so script creation is actually easy. There are a few performance concepts of parameterization, correlation. Those can be done at JMeter most of the places. Okay, so you can read it like performance testing, what actually it is. It's a software quality assurance. Performance testing is in a general testing practice performed to determine how a system performs in terms of responsiveness and stability. Under a particular own words. So on this application, if we put some workload, now workload 1,000 of people there clicking on the category and then adding that to cart and then place order and checkout. So basically, those users, 1,000 users, are doing activity on this application. So those activities, or those 1,000 users activities, you can think of a workload. Okay, so that's the actual workload. And with that workload, how a system performs. Okay, so now those 1,000 users are doing their activities, okay, using this application. Now, how this application actually performs when there are activities going on, because without the activity, when the system is in, so without the workload, or without the 1,000 users load, when the system is in idle state, the performance might be, or the behavior might be quite smooth. But when there is a workload, there are 1,000 of users using this application simultaneously, the application behavior might not be as smooth, or might not be quite consistent. In that case, you might face some issues, like if you are trying to log in and you are not able to log in because your login page is not actually loading properly, or if you are trying to pass user ID and password and clicking on the login button, it takes quite time, or even it's not logging in. So those behavior you might encounter when there is a workload on the application. So the whole idea is, when we are doing performance testing, we put some workload on the application, and then we monitor, and then we observe the behavior of the application. And what exactly we observe at a high level, we observe the responsiveness load, and then as you can think of a response time. So response time, if I can give you the hint, if I reload this page, what time this page actually takes, we call it response time. So if I just click on the reload button, now count one. Let's try one more time. One. Even it's not taking more than 1 second, right? Because I tried it many times and it's just loaded into less than 1 second. So this responsiveness is quite good. I reload this page and it takes less than a second or roughly a second because I just calculated it manually. So it might not be the behavior when we put some load into this application, right? So during that period, I have to look the responsiveness and then stability, like how stable my application is. Stability, you can think of like if my application is able to sustain the load or it's going to break. Okay, so these two things, these two key things we generally look. There are other aspects, so there are other characteristics as well, which comes under the evaluation or under the requirement that we look for any application. Okay, I hope this was clear to you. Now let's quickly talk about the types. Just let me know if you have any questions so far. Or longevity. And another thing is this spike. All right. Okay, so I have a quick question here. As a fresher, what would be the role of a performance tester? All right, that's a good question actually. Okay, so as a fresher, you should be clear enough on the performance concepts, and you should be having scripting knowledge. Okay, these are the key thing that anyone would be looking from a performance tester fresher. Okay, so be clear on the performance concepts, like key things like what is ramp up. Okay, what is a transaction per second. So whatever we cover as a concept throughout this session would be more than enough to say or to be considered. Having those knowledge, you can consider as a fresher performance tester, even more than that. And some scripting knowledge. So you should be able to understand the script. You should be able to record a script and doing some scripting work, modifying the script, applying parameterization, and would be able to do correlation. I think that should be more than enough. We are going to learn about JMeter script. So 95% part is not related to any programming language. It's just the knowledge around the UI and other concepts, okay, recording concepts and related to performance concepts. We do need some Java scripting or basic Java knowledge in order to achieve more than beginner level in scripting areas. Okay? So if you have basic Java knowledge, yeah. So if you have just basic Java knowledge, you can use those basic Java knowledge to enhance your scripting skills. Those can be availed, those scripting.
Sir, Java 9 means
that runs on a, you have to pay for those.
Okay.
In last, we are going to cover JMeter in a session. I cannot give you exact number of the load. Okay. Now think about this application. Not which a user would be following, or which a thread in terms of JMeter would be following on that application. So if I write here some business flow or user journey, it can be launch page. Let's talk about the which I can call it flow to launch page, login, click category, checkout. Just stop at checkout. I'm not going to checkout flow. I can call, which will consist of all these pages along with the further pages till we complete the place order, which now would add. So here I'm missing one more step before checkout. I have to add the cart, right? And then checkout. And then payment details. I mean, kind of a rough pages that I'm just adding here, which will cover on this application, right? So think of a flow that the user journey or the set of specific pages which you have to cover under your load, under your test design. Okay, that's what we call a flow. And in general, we call end-to-end flow for the application, and that's a kind of a general statement that we call end-to-end flow, which Now you can think like this is an application which allows me to buy pets online. So what would be the end-to-end flow? Because the objective of this application is to sell products. The end-to-end, because this is order is placed. All right, so that's a kind of different flows I mentioned for this application, and you have to be very specific of a flow, because that's what these pages are for which you are going to create a JMeter script, and you are going to simulate n number of users on these pages, and these pages being hit by those n number of users and will generate workload or will generate load on the application. Okay. All right, now you think of your application, whatever application you have, or you think of any other application, online shopping application or food delivery application or so, and you try finding out different flows or a set of different pages in different areas. Okay. Okay, I hope this flow is now clear to you. We designed a script manually. Let me design that very quickly for this application. Let me sign out of this application first. And this is the actual very first launch page of this application. Is if I have not pinged you, let me give this to you. You get this page both manually and through the recording option. Now, if I ask you to design a script for this flow 3, which is place order flow. So there are multiple pages here, right? 9 pages around, and for each page you have to if you are thinking of designing it manually, it would be quite difficult for you, and you might do mistake while designing the script for this flow or creating a script for this pages. So manual, yeah, definitely if there is a single page or there are just 1 or 2 pages, or most frequently if the APIs, the REST API is with you, just 1 or 2, and you have to do performance testing for that. Go for just putting the endpoint and some payload or the query parameter, and you are ready with your test plan. But when we talk about a flow which consists of more pages, we don't think of designing those, covering those flow or designing the script manually. Then there is a way of designing the script, and that we do through the recording option. Okay, so I'm not sure, but if you already have a background on Selenium, there are different plugins. There are different ways of recording the script, right? So think of designing a script, Selenium script for this application covering this flow, different pages. You would, I think you definitely are not going to design it manually, writing the codes manually in your Selenium language, in your Selenium support, but definitely you are going to use some recording tool, generate the script and do some modification and do some enhancement to make that script work more accurately and accordingly, right? So that exactly same thing we are going to do here. We are not going to cover these flows manually, but through the recording option. Okay. So in our case, what we will be doing while doing the recording will follow flow 3, which is place order flow. But let me quickly show you that how you can design the JMeter script manually as well, but not going through all the pages, but taking the launch page just itself. Okay. So here we have the JMeter that's popped up after double clicking the JMeter.fat. And by default, what we get is the simple UI with the no items added. Okay. In the left hand side, there's a test plan. Under that, we are going to add different elements. So if you right click on test plan, if you go on add, there are different menus here. And then there is a, there are a few things available under each menu, right? So under each category, I would say more accurately, there are different categories here. There is a threads or user category. There is a config elements. There are quite many things under config elements. There are quite many things under listeners. So each individual item we can call elements. Okay. So elements are like, we can call anything as an element. So this is a CSV dataset config element. This is a thread group element. This is under the listener, there is a summary report element. So whatever we add in the left-hand side, we call that element. So first we are going to add a thread group, which is the very first thing we need in order to create any script. So this thread group is going to provide us a way to generate number of users. Like we talked about 800,000 and 1,200 users. So those users we will get from this thread group element. Okay. Here you can clearly see the option of for defining number of users. Okay, like 800 or 1,000 or 1,200. So whatever number of users you define, those users will be ready to hit the page, right? But we don't have any page under this thread group yet, right? Now what we have to do, we have to add a page which is going to be the launch page under this thread group in order to let this user go and hit that page. Got it? So what other element we need? So this is what we have to do while designing a script. You have to have the knowledge of the element that you will require. Okay, so here, in order to design a script manually to hit this launch page for this application, first I need the detail of this application, the URL. And in terms of JMeter, I need to know that what element I have to add actually. So just at this moment, consider that in order to hit any HTTP or HTTPS type of pages, which we deal with in most of the cases, in 95% cases, and this is what our focus could be because we are going to deal with this protocol in most of the cases. What exactly we need? An element of type sampler, of category sampler, and what actually the sampler, because under the sampler itself there are multiple samplers, but we have to know if the application for which we are going to do testing is running on HTTP or HTTPS protocol. We need a HTTP request. Now this JMeter is capable of doing performance testing for different type of applications. You can do a database testing directly as well. In that case, yes, definitely you are going to need a sampler of type JDBC request. Okay, so this is a part of the coming session. We are going to learn about testing database or database testing directly from the JMeter. And in that case, we will be using JDBC request. But here we are going to hit the application running on HTTP or HTTPS protocol. So that's why we need HTTP request sampler here, right? Don't worry, because we are designing manually. So we have to know what element we need and we have to add that element manually. But when we get into the recording mode, all these things will be added by default by the recorder itself. Okay. So now this HTTP request I added have some fields to input. The protocol that I know is the HTTPS because this is the HTTPS protocol, and this part is the part which comes under server name or IP, the main application domain. Okay, and then this part I will put under the path section. Do note that the default when you add HTTP request, the method default you get is the get method, but if you are going to do the next page, which is the login, definitely if you are going to pass his ID and password, you have to change this method to post and then add your post body. Okay, so that's a further part. I mean, this is what the manual designing difficulties are, right? You have to take care of all the things manually, but if you just go and record these things through the recorder, these things will be automatically adjusted as per the application. So if you are going to record a login flow, the method will automatically be changed to post. Your post body will automatically be generated. Okay, that's why we prefer to do recording and not doing the script manually. All right, so I added these details, and the good thing is you can rename this element so that you know that what page is it. Okay, so it's a launch page for this application with this path. And now another thing I just need is the listener. Sorry.
So what does path signify there?
Sorry, can you please come again?
So under path, there was some value, right?
Uh-huh.
What value does it signify for the path?
Okay, just a second. Yeah. So let me add a listener. And at this moment, let me add a view results tree. So this listener will help in understanding from the application behavior of. You can think we're going to or to just go through the previous recording as well, which was a demo session. But still, there are quite things that I covered. Now, those things I definitely covered here as well, but that would be good for you if you just get some time and go back and look the previous, just one demo session that we had in last session as well. Okay, shared into the group chat, just line actually 3 details. The next part, the domain or IP or the main website domain, we can understand. If I go to the next page, okay, you will notice like this part category.action, and there has been a query parameter added. So this part will remain constant, but these things will keep changing, and that all actually goes under the path section. Not this, because this has been now a query parameter, but this is the path section that we action/catalog.action is the path section that we will be putting here. Okay, so for WhatsApp group, like if you are not into that, please contact the right person. Please connect with Raman. He will help you adding into the group. All right, so I designed this page by adding these 3 things: thread group, sampler, and the listener. I put some details into the sampler. Now, someone has shared the recording links into this chat itself. Thanks for that.
What is, sorry to interrupt, what is the meaning of this redirect automatically follow redirects people I use multiple from data property?
I didn't get you actually. Can you please repeat?
Follow.
By default, right? In some of the cases, when you log in into the application, few pages returns a redirection. Like you hit the login page, that returns you a 302. Okay, that redirects to a different page. Okay, so this behavior control those things. Follow redirect is something. If application is returning 302 and following redirecting you to a different page, your JMeter will automatically follow or redirect it to that page. Okay, redirect automatically. This is not checked by default, and I might not be able to answer this very clearly at this moment for this one. But this follow redirect is something when the application is returning 302 for any page and it's redirecting to a different page, your JMeter will follow that page and will hit that page and will bring the response back to you. Okay. We'll check on this redirect automatically. We'll probably provide you answer. Okay, use keep alive is something when you actually hit the page. Okay, you hit the launch page. So before hitting this page, what happens? There are pre-connections or pre-connect steps, which are like your JMeter initiates a connection, a handshake happens, and a connection is established from this client, from this JMeter to this website, right? So first a connection is established, then your request is transferred to this application. So JMeter first open a connection and then send the request to the application. Application sends the response back. Now, since before sending this request, a connection is opened, what to do of that connection? Keep that connection alive or close that connection. Okay, because this is something that if a connection is already open, I might need to send a new request to that application. So why to close that immediately? Let's keep that connection alive for some time and send the next request on that connection itself. So that's what the keep alive is. It's used by default to keep the connection open, so that each and every time you are not going to create a new connection and you are not going to impact the performance. I hope that was the answer.
Yeah.
So you are creating these are in thread group launch page and view results tree. What is this? These are the modules. According to module wise, you are testing because you are mentioning the name. So what we will say means name represents what in HTTP request.
In HTTP request.
So you are mentioning the name, okay. Launch
okay,
page.
This one, right? So
yes.
This you can give any name to this page actually, just for our understanding. I know that this is a launch page actually, so I given it a meaningful name so that I can identify. Okay, even if I am on this thread group, okay, if I don't give a name, there are multiple pages. It might be difficult, and I have to go on each page and look at the path. That okay, if this is catalog.action, this would be the launch page. If this is the checkout, this would be the checkout page. So rather going and wondering what page it is based on identifying with the help of path or query parameter, I can give it a more identifiable name as per. I mean, any custom
we are testing the page wise, or we are testing the module wise, and we are testing the component wise. So
okay, so here we are testing page wise right now. We are going to add individual pages.
Okay.
And we called this as a set flow 3 or a place order flow, which consists of all these different pages. So it's a page wise testing. And now I just clubbed all these pages with the name place order in order to test different pages. But doing so, what we do as a next step, rather than designing these pages manually by adding all these details right here, and then again adding a sampler and then HTTP request and then putting details for the login, what we would do, we'll simply use the recording option. Now in that case, what we will do, we will set the recording and we'll just navigate through the pages. Like I navigate to the launch, and then that launch will be automatically added into my thread group. Now if I navigate to the login automatically, so in that we'll get covering all these. That's what we are going to cover tomorrow. We'll show exactly all the steps required in order to cover order flow. Which
in one is using the protocol HTTP
of handling both HTTP ports, HTTPS as well.
HTTP.
Leave it.
Then it will not.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Just hit this start button and go to the. I can give it. Will save, and every JMeter script is saved with extension .jmx. And the reason, because when I start the test, we got 10 samples. The reason, because I iterated it 10 times. So now I can look about some details on this view results under this view. Easy to understand actually. You can.
Why the iteration is required here?
So you want to. And
you're telling.
You can do it for the sake of just understanding. Let's details. Okay. Just think of that. We have added a login page here. I mean, just consider it as a login page, though it has the launch detail itself only, just for the understanding. And now if I do iteration, 2 iterations only, what will happen? These 2 pages will get, I mean, whatever the pages we have, will iterate it twice. Okay, so first iteration, launch and login. Second iteration, launch and login.
What is the need of this?
Okay, now the need of this is you have to be sure, like you did one iteration, right? And something has broken. Let's say login has not happened. This might be due to some network issue. This might be due to some, it might be temporarily network unavailable, or at that moment something has happened which is not permanent, right? So you cannot complain that my login was failed and my application is broken, right? You have to try it multiple times, at least thrice, 4 or 5 times, 10 times to be ensure, like, okay, each and every time my login is failing. So that's way you can repeat it multiple times to be ensure that every time you did 5 iteration, and then out of 5 times you was successful, you were successful. You did 100 iteration, and out of 100, 3 times you got your login failure. Now you can say that my login is not that much stable and it's failing 3 times out of 100, right? So that kind of details you can craft out of multiple iterations.
So you are telling for each specific cases we have to check this in such a way, like, like 5 times, 3 times we have to perform these things.
Right. So that's what we do, right? When we do performance testing for 1 hour duration, what we do, whatever flow we have, we keep repeating those flows for 1 hour duration. That might be happened. Those different pages under that flow will repeat it 100,000 times.
So let's suppose if I have repeated it for 6 times, but for 3 times it was not working, correctly.
So that's a 50% failure, right? So that in that case, we say my login page is failing 50%, which is quite not acceptable. Anyone cannot offer 50% failure for any page, right? That's what your objective is.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah. Now you can think, like, if you are the application owner, there should be some tolerance, or there should be some acceptable failure for your application, which we can go up to 1%, 0.8%, 1%, or kind of, close to this range, not 50%, right? Okay. So that's what criteria we have to find. Even these, as I mentioned, like these kind of criteria, you have to gather as a part of requirement gathering, or these must be given to you as a part of NFR. If you don't have all these, don't hesitate to just showcase these informations to the person or to the team who has asked for a performance test. Just represent that, okay, I did 100 iterations. Out of that, I found like this page is failing more than 50%. That's what a problem is. Now, take some actions against it, throw it to the developer, throw it to some other department, say that this is failing more than 50%, which is not acceptable, right? That's what you have to showcase.
So you are telling that, yeah, you can.
No, you can. Sorry.
Okay, sir. So you were telling like being like, if let's suppose if someone is automation tester, then they have to. You were telling that they have to do all the RCA and then root cause analysis, and then they have to present it to developer. Or it is right. Like only a work of developer. Like we have to just communicate with them. Like, yeah, these things are happening, and they have to do those things. Whose responsibility here to work on the RCA?
Okay, so being a performance tester, your main part is to find out the problems. Okay, highlight those problems. Now it goes to the mainly it's the developer part. Okay, or it might be a part of the performance other performance department, which is the performance engineering part. That it might not be failing with just one user, because those validations might have already happened at the QA end. But when it comes to you, you are not going to run it with one user only, right? You might be going to run it with more than 200 users, 300 users, or some, right? And in that case, it's failing. You are repeating it 1,000 times, and you are getting it failed at high percentage. So that's what you have to catch. You have to present that. That goes to some different department. Definitely, it's a developer call, or it's an architect call now to work on RC.
So one question is that by increasing iteration, we are increasing load or stress?
No, we don't increasing load or stress. We are just keeping that much user, just extending the duration.
So can it come under endurance?
Yes, it come under endurance. Let's say pages we have, and roughly I will complete my test in 100 seconds. I have just run with 100 iteration. I can again increase the iteration, which will now run 100 seconds.
Minimum
kind of number to give you the
do stress and load.
Of the complete test or just the one
intricate. Okay.
So one, and this time, instead of infinite, I just keep some specific time.
It will help. It will